war started, when Germany invaded Poland, I remember sitting in school and the bombs started falling. And those terrible, heavy sounds of the bombers were so frightening. And you'd lay on the ground. And this was my first exposure as to what war was. And then the Germans came into town. So there was approximately 5,000 Jewish people that lived in the town. We were all supposed to live in one small area, the ghetto, which is brick walls built around our area with barbed wire on top. We were not allowed to go out of the ghetto. In fact, if you were caught outside the ghetto, you were shot. It must have been around 5 in the morning. My mother woke me up. Get dressed in a hurry. We have to go and hide. And I remember the fear, because I knew what was going to happen to us. And suddenly you heard shooting and screams. The ghetto was surrounded by Ukrainian soldiers, and the Ukrainian soldiers were shooting into a hiding place and screaming, the Gestapo screaming. Suddenly there was blood coming into my mouth from my upper lip. What happened is a bullet hit the wall and ricocheted, and a splinter got embedded in my upper lip. And I remember we were lined up against the wall, all of us. I knew we were going to die. By that time, we already knew exactly what was happening. And as I was sitting there next to my dad and my little sister, Sarah, who's been breaking my heart for most of my life, I remember exactly what she was wearing. And the sad look in her eyes stays with me forever. Because I was thinking, here's a 6-year-old little girl, don't know what's going on. And then my dad whispers to me, he says, run. So what I did is, as the people were in a line, I sort of crawled behind the people on my hands and my knees till the end of the marketplace. So I went into a house that belonged to an uncle of mine. And about 200 yards from the house was the barbed wire fence. And normally you'd have guards there, and I didn't see anybody. But there was a Polish woman that stood on the outside of the ghetto. An old woman with the babushka on her head and a long, dark brown skirt. And she kept motioning to me and hollering in Polish, chodź, chodź, come. So I started running to the barbed wire, and she came up to the barbed wire fence. And she lifted the thorny strands. And I crawled through the barbed wire, and I cut my leg on the thorns. And I was bleeding profusely, but so scared that the pain doesn't mean anything to me. And I still have a picture of this woman. And she smiled at me, and she says, run. My parents had made arrangements with a Polish couple by the name of Górski to take in one of the children. And my sister Irene was chosen. And I remember coming to the Górski's house, and I said, I'd like to see Mrs. Górski. And when she saw me, she started screaming at me. And I cried and I begged. And somehow, I must have touched her heart. She says, okay, I'll let you stay here for a couple of days. So she walked me up to the attic of her house, handed me a pail to use as a toilet, and that was my safe haven. I was all alone, nobody to talk to. The freezing cold and the loneliness and the hunger. Never took a bath, never cut my hair, never brushed my teeth. You're constantly thinking about death and dying and how you're going to be killed or maybe thrown out. And where were your parents? What was happening to everybody? I knew that they were probably dead. And I spent close to 2 years in that attic. And when we got out of the hiding place, I think I weighed maybe 50 pounds, if that much. And my sister maybe a couple more. And out of the 5,000 Jewish people that lived in the town, only 29 people survived. Only 2 children survived in the room. my sister and I. I had trouble adjusting to life. And I dealt with hate. And I had to overcome that because as a teenager, I wanted Germany bombed out of existence. And then you start realizing that if you continue to hate, you're destroying your own life.